turn this on. All right, we will start our Finance and Personnel Committee meeting today, November 25th. We will have call to order, and then we will have roll call. Hit your button. What would you be, Pam? Okay.
Alder Horton.
Here.
Alder Sebastian. Here. Alder Davis. Present. Alder Land. Here. Alder McCarthy. Present. That completes roll call.
All right, we will have the approval of the minutes for November 11th, 2024. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, first item. First item. Yep, got you.
Thank
Gotcha.
you. Perfect. Item number 1080-24, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason, requesting that the list of alternate early absentee voting locations for 2025 be approved. Staff recommendation that the list of alternate early absentee voting locations for 2025 be approved. Fiscal note NA. Clerk McMenamin is here to speak on the item.
All right.
I don't usually have to hit it.
There we go.
Hi, thank you for having me at the Finance and Personnel meeting. The item before you is to approve all of the early voting sites for the following year. There are 157 on the list. We do not anticipate using all 157, but these are all potential sites that could be used for early absentee voting. This tradition goes back to 2018 when we first started having some satellites for, I believe it was the November general election in 2018, but happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions for the clerk? All the way.
Thank you. Tara, is this specifically for the mobile voting van? Or did you really anticipate having even 1/10 of those locations as an alternative site?
Yeah, so great question. So we've been doing this since prior to the mobile election van in 2018. So we've been doing it for quite a few years. We did include more places as we received a mobile election unit. In April of 23, we went up to 19 places. However, for this past election, we did use up to 7 without a mobile election unit. So, I mean, it does vary depending on our resources, but we're still waiting for the state to rule down a decision. So we're unaware if whether or not we're able to use it or not in the 2025 elections.
So using the mobile voting van is based upon ruled, is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
So if we approve all these, wouldn't it be better if we approved ones that we believe that we would use if there was a mobile voting van so that the council is absolutely sure what locations are going to be used rather than every location in the city?
Sure. So the courts have deemed that it's okay to approve a full entire list and then to choose from it later on, as long as the council approves the entire list. Obviously, if there's places, you're more than welcome to take them out or to amend it as requested, but we do not have the list of what we plan on using next year. We could get the decision down tomorrow. We could get the decision down, after the April election next year.
So is there a reason why we're approving this list now rather than waiting until we know if the mobile voting van is going to be utilized and then just zoom in on whatever locations you intend to place the van?
Great question. So state statute determines that I have to approve the list. It's a certain amount of days before ballots are available for the February. Whatever ones I use in February, I have to use in April. So technically this would be the last common council meeting coming up December 3rd that we could approve before the February and April elections.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, moved by Alder McCarthy and second by Alder Davids. All in favor signify by saying aye. Yes. Oh, all right, so Before, since we are in the chambers, if you guys are asking or requesting to speak, just push your mic so I can see you and recognize you. Thank you. Did you push it? I don't see you up here yet. Let me see you. There you go. I got you now. All right.
Thank you. I have some questions in regards to just some of these locations and the thoughts behind it. I noticed some are businesses, and typically I notice like throughout Wisconsin, they typically focus on governmental locations and schools, possibly community centers and such. But having that there are some for-profits on there, my concern is that the environment is not controlled by the city, right? And so with a lot of you have a lot of regulations. Our voting locations have regulations. The businesses don't follow that same regulations. So how would you work with that? Or is there some agreement, and plus the liability as well? What about the liability? Who covers liability for all these locations?
Sure, so liability is covered by the attorney's office when we submit the voting locations by year. So they do take this full entire list in case they need it, but once my Type E comes out, they do amend it, I believe, to only include the places that we've used.
Okay, and as for the locations on here that I see, I mean, we got, quite a handful. There's no point in reading them all. What did you say? There was 157
Yes.
on this list. And a handful are businesses. Again, these are environments that we don't control. We don't know what type of guests they might have in their establishments. We don't know what type of material are being passed out. And typically, I know there is a Wisconsin state statute that has certain requirements on voting locations and what can be in there. Is that part of a consideration when we are choosing these locations, or can you walk me through that?
Yeah, so if we decide to use a not-for-profit, when we notice that Type E, we do work beforehand with the for-profits if we choose to use them to make sure that there's no electioneering and that it follows all the state statutes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we had a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that.
You're on.
Item number 1064-24, communication sponsored by Elder Horton on behalf of the Public Health Director requesting permission for the mayor and city clerk to negotiate and execute a lease and an agreement with Kenosha Community Health Center Incorporated, DBA Pillar Health, to operate a federally qualified health clinic in the new Lincoln King Community Center and Clinic building. Staff recommendation that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to negotiate and execute a lease and an agreement with Kenosha Community Health Center Incorporated, DBA Pillar Health, to operate an FQHC in the new Lincoln King Community Center and Clinic building. Fiscal note, the FQHC will be primarily federally funded, with most of the operating costs be absorbed by Kenosha Community Health Center Incorporated, DBA Pillar Health, as part of the lease agreement. Deputy Director Fergus is here to speak on the item. Before you go, Bobby, I just wanted to introduce this one a little bit, just to give the committee the reasoning why this is in front of us today versus a little while from now. So the Community Center Clinic project at Lincoln King, as was presented to the alders back about 3 months or so ago, has anywhere between 3 and 5 private investors, what are called new market tax credit investors. As part of those investment groups, there are 2 investment groups that are particularly interested in the federally qualified health clinic portion of the project. Their investments include over $11 million worth of investment into the project. And one of the things that they are requesting is that this item, particularly the lease agreement and the letter of intent with Pillar Health, be brought forward to the Common Council. So that's why we bring it to you today, even though obviously the building itself will not be operational until the end of 2026, 3rd quarter, 4th quarter of 2026. So Deputy Director Fergus, if you want to go from there.
Thank you. Good evening, Alders, Mayor. For those of you that don't know me, My name is Bobby Fergus. I am the Deputy Health Officer, and I'll be filling in for Dottie Kay this evening. I know I've seen a lot of your faces, but just wanted to formally introduce myself. So this agenda item is requesting permission for a lease agreement with Pillar Health to operate a federally qualified health center in the new Lincoln King Community Center and the clinic. So I know we've been talking about this for a lot of years, but a federally qualified healthcare center, or an FQHC, is a federally funded nonprofit health center that serves medically underserved areas and populations. Entering into a lease agreement with Pillar Health will help provide primary care, dental, and mental health services to Racine community, particularly in areas designated as health professional shortage areas, meaning that there are not enough providers for a certain field to meet the needs of the community. Racine is currently the largest community in Wisconsin without an operating federally qualified healthcare center. A lease agreement will help bridge this gap, meeting the healthcare needs of the underserved populations. According to the Racine County Community Health survey report that we completed in 2024, accessible, affordable, and quality healthcare is one of the top 5 social issues in the area. Partnering with Pillar Health will directly address these concerns by providing services to residents who need them the most. The Lincoln King Community Center and Clinic building will be in the 53404 zip code. The zip codes 53403 and 53404 are some of the most distressed and impoverished in Wisconsin. 45% of the residents in these zip codes live below federal poverty level, with an estimated 31% enrolled in Medicaid, and another 10% that are uninsured. Pillar Health offers a sliding scale fee, ensuring that even uninsured residents can access care for a low cost, as low as $30 per visit, making healthcare accessible to a broader population. Pillar Health is unique and provides integrated medical, dental, and behavioral health services in a health home model. So this places patients and their family at the center of care, delivered by a patient-focused team, allowing for a more comprehensive and coordinate care to address individualized health and social needs of the residents. The FQHC will primarily be federally funded, minimizing financial burden on the community, with most of the operating costs absorbed by Pillar Health as a part of the lease agreement. Pillar Health already provides care to over 1,000 Racine residents, and it's positioned to expand services significantly, improving access to health care for underserved populations. The establishment of a federally qualified healthcare center will address both immediate healthcare needs and contribute to long-term community health and economic stability by reducing healthcare disparity in the areas. In preparation of the Lincoln King Community Center and the clinic, Pillar Health will open and establish healthcare center operations in the Julian Thomas Elementary School in the first quarter of 2025, and then transition over to the new building. If you have any questions for me at this time, I also just want to let you know that I have Mary, who is the CEO of Pillar Health here, as well as her team. And then I know Scott's in the background too somewhere, if you guys have questions.
All right, Alder McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure who the best person to answer this is, but I understand the need for an operating agreement with Pillar. I'm not understanding the basis for us to be leasing the facilities to them. Could somebody explain that to me?
My fault. So in terms of the lease agreement itself, so the building itself, if you recall from the presentation, is about a 78,000 square foot building. It's all one building. The investors themselves have suggested that there is a lease agreement for that portion of the building with Pillar Health, as to not attempt to sever or condo out that piece of the building for them to own it. Would your question be, why don't they just own it?
That would be a reasonable follow-on.
Yeah. I assume that's what you're getting at. So again, the investors themselves are suggesting that this would be a lease agreement. This would be a 7-year lease agreement because it has to follow the tax credit investors investment, which is a 7-year investment. We had always imagined it being a lease agreement versus a purchase of the building because it is it's one large building, if you will. I think if it was a standalone building, it would be different.
If I may follow on,
Go ahead.
so does that mean they will be leasing the recreational facilities there as well, if it's a large
No,
building?
they will not. There's a certain square footage associated with the FQHC itself that will be considered their lease agreement. And then under the structure is pretty complicated. There'll also be agreements with the Public Health Department that will have one part of the space of the building as well as the community center piece of the building as well.
So that'll be an internal chargeback for those spaces then? Okay.
Correct.
All right. I had a follow-on, but let me think about how to phrase it here for a minute then, please.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. You good? Okay. I would entertain a motion for 1064-24. All right. It's been moved by Alder McCarthy, second by Alder Land. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 1076-24, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason, Alders Kelly, Land, Horton, Perez, Davis, Coe, Harmon, and Pete on behalf of the fire chief, requesting permission that the city authorize the placement of a fire department referendum on the April 1st, 2025 spring ballot. Staff recommendation that the city authorize the placement of a fire department referendum on the April 1st, 2025 spring ballot. Fiscal note, the referendum will increase the 2026 tax levy by $1.5 million and on an ongoing basis going forward. The estimated annual impact to a home assessed at $175,000 is $54. Chief Hansen is here to speak on the item.
Go ahead, Chief. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Horton, members of the Finance Committee, Mayor, Alders. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening on the Fire Department referendum. On behalf of the Fire Department and the community, thank you for the opportunity to present the referendum for April 1st, 2025. This entire process is data-driven, and numerous graphs will be presented. When the opportunity presents itself, if you haven't already done so, please take a moment to review the agenda briefing memorandum. Assistant Chief Brian Wolf has handed out the documents to you, so you may follow along on what we have going on here. So briefly, history since 2001. The fire department in 2001 had 153 members. In 2006, it was reduced to 147. In 2007, it went from 147 to 141. And then in 2022, it went from 141 to 132. The staffing was restored in 2023 with the FEMA AFG SAFER grant from 132 back to 141. During this period of time, call volume increased by 45% with zero increase in staffing from 2007 to 2022. The average annual increase in call volume is 3.05%, and you can see that on the attached graph on the front page there. Green line represents the staffing, the orange line represents the increased call volume. On page 2 of the document, we talk about call volume and response times. Calls per hour are increasing from approximately 3/4 per hour to over 2.5 calls per hour. That may not sound like a lot, but when you have multiple calls backing up against each other, it gets busy very quickly. The graph that's below that, simultaneous incidence calls, what that does is that shows you how many times we are going on calls where we have multiple incidences going on at the same time. More often than not, it's 2 incidences, but 3 and 4 incidences at the same time also impacts the resources of the fire department, hence the need for additional staffing. At your leisure, you can read through the other graphs that are at the bottom there, the fractal time analysis, cross-city emergency responses, pulseless non-breathers, and the use of Narcan for drug overdoses that we have in our community. Currently, we have the following resources: 3 frontline paramedic units, Med 1, Med 3, and Med 4. We also have 3 reserve ambulances that we use every day, Med 2, Med 21, and Med 6. And we have 1 backup med unit that is not staffed. That's for when a unit does go down. When we look at the call volume, especially the medical call volume, the graph on page 3 shows you that BLS calls and ALS calls represent about half of what our Advanced Life Support 1 calls for service are. Advanced Life Support 1 calls require a first responder for life-threatening and potentially life-ending emergencies. And you can see by that chart there that we have a lot of those types of calls. When we are dispatched by dispatch, Racine County Communications Center, we never know if the information they are providing us is accurate until we actually get on scene, so we need to make sure we send adequate resources to start with. Moving on to page 4, we talk about the number of members responding on calls. You've heard me talk about this before, where we talked about going from a 3-person ambulance to a 2-person ambulance and what that looks like. The graph that's on that page represents the number of members per call from 2019 to 2024 year to date. As you will note, our 3-member responses went down when we went to 2-person ambulances. And then number of individuals on a call went up significantly for 4, 5, or 6 additional EMTs or paramedics responding to these calls. There are impacts on staffing reductions that you should be aware of. We have increased emergency response times, increased cross-city responses, which you'll note in Appendix B, and I can go into that later if there's questions. One of the scourges on our community, of course, is drug overdoses. We do see a fair number of those, and there is mapping to that as well. All these require at least 2 paramedics in the back of the ambulance to start treating a patient and somebody to drive the ambulance to the hospital. Our state EMS operational plan calls for 2 paramedics to be with a patient when starting advanced treatment, which happens frequently. Additional apparatus and paramedics need to be sent, so we have those 2 available in the back of the ambulance. And that requires sending a second unit, whether it's a first responder or an engine company with additional individuals. When our ambulances do come out of the hospital, they oftentimes are called out of the hospital to respond to calls. Sometimes they don't have an opportunity to restock with essential supplies. Some of the more significant medical challenges that have become the norm in our community: heart attacks, congestive heart failure, stroke, trauma, burns, diabetic issues, seizures, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, asthma, difficulty breathing, respiratory failure, drug overdoses are but a sampling of what we respond to. In addition to sending 2 pieces of equipment on every call, we have increased wear and tear issues on our trucks. One of the things that I've mentioned to the council before is our fire trucks and ladder trucks. When I became chief back in 2006, we paid about $387,000 for a truck. Now we're paying over $1 million. So we need to make sure we're using those wisely. Ambulances likewise have gone up in cost, doubling from $160,000 to $300,000 today. We have issues with emissions, motors and emissions, transmissions, tires, in addition to the cost of new apparatus to keep our fleet running. We do have some limitations where we can go with acute patients. One of the things that we plan for is there have been times when Ascension All Saints has gone on diversion and we had to go to other facilities, which then requires us to transport to a hospital out of the area. This does happen with every hospital in the state. Sometimes their emergency rooms are full. And I've had this personal experience with my father-in-law where my father-in-law was boarded in the emergency department at Ascension All Saints for 24 hours because they didn't have rooms available, which also impacts us bringing patients in. The SAFER grant has provided for 9 positions. The SAFER grant expires in March of 2026. We only have 1 election between now and then, and that's the April 2025 election before the grant expires. The referendum will restore EMT and paramedic staffing to pre-2022 levels. More calls handled by 3-person paramedic units will happen, which is our goal. More first responder units will be available for successive calls. Provisions in the referendum cover personnel and benefits costs that are projected over the next several years. Some of the other things that we'd like to see if we can do, or at least we'd like to see the council work on in the future, is keeping the cadet program alive. We have 3 individuals that went through the cadet program that are now in line to be hired by the fire department. These are city residents that worked hard, and we think it's really a valuable program to get these kids involved with the fire department from the community, from the city of Racine. We'd like to also see this help us restore the mobile integrated healthcare program. This is where we have people come in and visit people that are discharged from the hospitals and make sure they're following their discharge instructions. Again, looking to try and reduce that overall call volume. This will address current and future needs of the community. As the health department alluded to earlier, we have a high population of Medicare and Medicaid patients within our community that need services. And this is something that we do on a regular basis. The annual cost of the referendum is $54 for a $175,000 home, or if you own a home that's $100,000, we're looking at about $31 per year for that cost. I don't want to take too much more time and give you an opportunity for questions, so at this time, let's questions that you may have for me.
All right, we have the mayor.
Thank you. And Chief, thanks for bringing this forward, and it's great to hear about the cadet program yielding good results. But I don't want to oversimplify the presentation you just made, but I just want to understand or reiterate part of what you said. We have this federal grant that funds 9 of our offers that's going to end around the end of next year. And so as we see an increase in our call volume and calls for service, if we want to maintain those 9 positions, we really need to go to referendum and ask the voters to extend that funding so we can maintain that staffing level. Is that a fair summary of your presentation?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing this forward.
Alderman McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief. I'm looking at the graphs on page 4 of the handout here. It's called Racine Fire Department's number of members per call 2019 through 2024.
Yes.
The orange line represents 3 people attending an event.
Correct.
So we're showing well over half. We already have 3 people at this point.
I'm sorry, we're what?
I'm showing that well over half of our total calls, we already have 3 people attending them. I'm showing over 5,000 there, and the others don't add up to anywhere near 5,000. Is that correct?
That is a correct analysis, and that is because we have the SAFER grant. When the SAFER grant ends in March of 2026, you're going to see that orange line drop again if we don't replace those positions, just like it did back in 2022.
Okay. Okay, and there's been a lot of talk about the ARPA grant. This is a different grant than the
Correct.
The SAFER grant.
The SAFER grant is a federal FEMA. It's a competitive grant it's called the Assistance to Firefighters Program, completely separate from ARPA funding, nothing to do with ARPA funding. You write a proposal, it is evaluated by our peers, and then awards are made based on that assessment. So there is no guarantee that even if we did write the grant again, that we would get that same grant.
So it's your intent, if this were to go to referendum and pass, to not even write that grant at this point? You're just going to say, we got the money, we're good?
So the Assistance to Firefighters grant, the SAFER grant, is a temporary grant to help communities get through a tough time. And that's what we have done. When I wrote that grant, I said that that would give us as a community some breathing space to work on putting together a proposal for the citizens through a referendum to retain those 9 positions.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
All right. I don't see anybody else in the queue. At this time, I would entertain a motion. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Chief, just a couple questions. I was looking at the ABM and at the fiscal note, and it says here that funds will also be used for replacement ambulances and medical equipment. Could you tell me what portion of this referendum will go for replacement ambulances and medical equipment?
When we put this grant together, we were looking at the equipment replacement costs. The challenge that we have is we do have a CIP program where that funding could come out of. This funding, as it's proposed here, and it's not updated in your packet, would be for staffing.
So simply only for staffing?
Yes.
Okay, and then I know I've heard that a lot of calls that rescue squads go on are for lift services at a lot of the adult group homes. Are there alternatives for, other than the rescue squad, to go for those lift assists?
Okay, good question. The question is for lift assists at homes and businesses, is there an alternative to sending a rescue squad? And as it stands now, we don't send a rescue squad on those calls. We have a call for service that's called Invalid Assist. And when those types of calls come in for somebody that just needs to be picked up or moved and they're not injured, we'll send a ladder truck or a fire engine to assist with those types of calls. We keep the ambulances available for true medical emergencies. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it's kind of stunning to me to learn that we're sending a fire truck for a lift assist, especially when there's so many. How many lift assists were you projecting that there would be in 2025? Based on
I can tell you what
past-
we've had in the past several years. We've gone up from 300 to almost 500 calls this year for lift assists. And the reason why it may sound stunning, but you have to look at it from an emergency medical perspective, I need to keep the ambulances and the paramedics available for those medical emergencies that are coming in. The individuals that are on fire engines and ladder trucks are trained EMTs or paramedics, and when they go to lift somebody up, they do a medical evaluation of that individual to make sure they're not injured, and then they'll help them get up to their feet. So to send an ambulance on that takes that ambulance out of service for a more critical emergency that's coming in. We've been doing that for almost 20 years.
So but the lift assist is becoming more and more frequent, isn't it?
That is correct.
The number's growing. Are there other options for businesses and adult group homes other than just the Racine Rescue Squad, or can they call Bell City or?
Well, what we would surely like the folks to do is to contact providers or provide training to their people to be able to do this safely. So I spent many years on a paramedic rescue squad, over 10 years, and I had a number of these calls. And I know from personal knowledge that you had some major employers in the area that would not allow their personnel to pick people up off the floor, and they were given a mandate to call the rescue squad to pick people up. So, you know, they're transferring that aspect of their facility to us and taking away from our ability to respond to emergencies.
Okay, the only other thing that I would add is that however you're going to write up the referendum, I want the sentence eliminated from the fiscal note regarding funds being used for replacement ambulances and medical equipment, and that will be for staffing only. I want that to be indicated, both in whatever recommendation comes to the city council and whatever referendum question is placed on the ballot if the council chooses to let that go forward.
Okay.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue at this time, I'll entertain a motion for this item. Second. Motion by Alderman Land, second by the chair. All in favor, signal. Did you have your hand up again? Oh. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Now that we have a motion, I did want to speak to the motion. I'm completely in favor of the community deciding what they want to do about this. I'm undecided as a citizen, which way I'm going to vote on this honestly here, but the community should decide on it themselves, and then I want to look at what the staff has to say in more detail as they, in essence, advocate for this during the process of prepping for the election here. But I believe the community should be able to make this decision on their own. Thank you.
So can you state
Are you still on?
Can you state what the motion is?
Oh, so the motion was to approve item 1076-24. And it was authorization on behalf for the fire chief requesting permission for the city to authorize the placement of a fire referendum, the fire department's referendum, April 1st, 2025 spring ballot.
The question
Yes,
itself.
Yes, please.
So in your attachment is the question itself as the attorney has written it. So I will read it aloud just so that you can hear what the question would actually say. Under state law, the increase in the levy of the City of Racine for the tax to be imposed for the next fiscal year, 2026, is limited to 0.679 percent, which results in a levy of $59,288,390. Shall the City of Racine be allowed to exceed this levy limit and increase the levy for the next fiscal year 2026 and on an ongoing basis for the purpose of enhancing, strengthening, and equipping emergency medical services, ambulances, for the citizens of Racine by retaining paramedics and emergency medical technicians by a total of 2.53%, which results in a levy of $60,788,390, and on an ongoing basis include the increase of $1.5 million for each fiscal year going forward. That would be the question as it's written right now today. It is very statutorily required. Now, if I can just jump in on that, the language that could be changed is the language that relates to how the funds would be spent, which is for the purpose of enhancing, strengthening, and equipping emergency medical services, in parens ambulances, for the citizens of Racine by retaining paramedics and emergency medical technicians. That piece, and it is attached to your document so you all can kind of take a look at it, but that piece can be modified. Everything else is extremely state statute.
And just one moment. Let me turn you back on. There you go. You're on.
Two questions for the finance director. One is, going forward in 2026 or 2025 when we do the budget for 2026, should other positions get cut from the budget, would that have any impact on the amount that we are levying?
No, good question. So if this referendum was put to the citizens and voted yes by the citizens, this $1.5 million would be levied regardless of what our regular levy is, would be levied in addition to that. It also will be set aside in its own special revenue fund. So this funding source will be set aside and the expenses associated with it will then be charged to that specific special revenue fund.
Okay, and as far as the sentence that can be changed regarding the equipping, that means equipment, correct, or does that mean personnel?
So the chief wrote sort of that part of the question itself, so I guess I would defer to the chief a little bit as to what is meant there. I will say just a note, a little bit more flexibility is sometimes better because keep in mind this will be in perpetuity. So we may not need equipment today, but maybe 5 years from now we would need equipment. So just throwing it out there, this is a really good place for a conversation because you can kind of do it any which way.
Yep.
So if I may, that additional equipment includes personal protective gear, firefighting turnout coats, pants, helmet, gloves, station uniforms, and anything the firefighters may need to perform their job.
But that's something that we budget for every year. We don't have to ask for an additional. You would just budget that for the number of personnel that you have, correct? You don't have to have additional just for those 9 positions.
Well, there's an initial outlay for these 9 positions to bring them back on board, okay? As we hire new people, we have to provide them with equipment per the collective bargaining agreement.
But
So
that's in the regular budget.
It is.
That doesn't have to be in this referendum dollars.
So we raise the price of protective equipment and station uniforms goes up every year. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we were paying about $2,500 for personal protective equipment. Now we're getting up towards $3,500, $4,000 per individual to pay for that equipment. The other side of this equation, too, would be paramedic training. If the individuals that are hired are only emergency medical technicians basics and we send them to paramedic school, we would have to budget additional funds in our regular accounts to pay for that, which we do some of right now.
I am all in support of the people that pay the taxes here having a voice in this referendum. I'm 100% behind that. It was my understanding, because we are proposing this referendum to continue the employment of those 9 positions that would go away in mid-2026 when the grant runs out, correct? But those positions right now are none of the equipment or they're,
They are equipped right now, yes.
yeah, nothing else. Everything for them is being paid for out of the grant, all their equipment and everything, or just their,
The grant pays for wages and salaries except for overtime. Overtime is not covered by that grant, and that's specific to the federal grant,
does
the
it
SAFER
cover
grant.
equipment? And
We pay for the equipment out of our fire department funds, our existing accounts.
so I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that if you want to have a referendum to continue those 9 positions, then it should be specifically just for those positions. Anything else, any additional cost for those positions, because we're really just retaining what we already have, would be a part of your budget, not part of the referendum. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Understood. So that would require a change in the language, which we can work on.
Yeah, let me just jump on that just a little bit. So the actual math for the 9 positions alone, with healthcare benefits, the whole 9, is $1.3 million. That's just for the 9 positions, okay? We had to build in some cost of living because we only get to do this once. So the extra $200,000 that's in there is that cost of living because we only get to do this once. We can't ask for more every single, well, we could, but
So COLA for 9 positions is $200,000?
no, but it's over a 5-year period of time.
Oh.
I'm looking out 5, 6, 7, 10
Okay.
years. But yeah, their Wisconsin retirement can go up easily 5% a year. Healthcare goes up 10% a year. It's expensive.
Thank you.
Mayor Mason.
Well, just to add, I mean, if we don't have the positions, we won't keep equipping them. If we do, as people come in and out, we will need equipment. I think I'm going to defer to the chief and the fire service to comment on this more, but it is a little bit different than equipment that somebody might need in the finance department, right? I mean, when you talk about equipment for a firefighter, there's life-saving gear, and it's expensive, and it's important, and it's important. I view that as part of having somebody on staff, is making sure that they have the gear that they need when they run into a burning building or go to save somebody whose life might be threatened. I view that as part of the building into the cost of the position. I think it's worth letting the voters having the flexibility to decide that.
If I may, when we talk about personal protective equipment, by contract, it's replaced every 5 years. The set that they're wearing for the first 5 years, at the end of that 5 years, we have to go through and replace that again. So these are just, costs that go on with running a fire department, so.
Okay, Alder Sebastian.
Question. So I thought the language equipped was interesting. So not only would that, now correct me if I'm incorrect, not only would include equipment, but also supplies. So I guess the idea is to be more efficient and be able to serve more constituents. So that would imply that there would be more of a cost with those things as well. So does that go with the equipped also, or?
No, supplies, regular operating supplies, things that we use to treat people with, that's not in
Okay,
there.
thank you.
Hit it again for me. I don't see you there. Hit it again for me. I don't see you in the queue here. Still not there. Still not in the queue. Yeah. Okay. He got it. I got you. You're on.
All right, thank you to Connor and Tech Support. This might be for Director Fisher at first. I inferred from what you said that were this to pass, we, the community, are approving an amount of dollars as opposed to a percentage of the levy?
That's correct. It's an amount of dollars. It's actually a line item on the levy limit worksheet.
Okay, then I would observe as well that an amount of dollars is going to have less value as time goes on. And if we approve this in perpetuity, we're going to be saying at some point in the future, we've barely funded enough money for one firefighter here because it's a dollar amount kind of thing. We have no obligation to make this in perpetuity, I assume, Director Fisher?
The language of that's in the resolution right now and in the question itself has to be the way that it is in terms of the ongoing. If we want to be able to use $1.5 million in 2027. Okay, so if you only said $1.5 million without the word ongoing, you would get $1.5 million in 2026, and then we'd have to take it away for 2027.
Understood, but we're saying ongoing in perpetuity. Why do we have to say in perpetuity? Is that
We don't have to say in perpetuity.
That's my point here then.
Just ongoing. That was my terminology. It's not in the question that way.
Okay. So right now, the way it's phrased, it would de facto be in perpetuity, but we have the option to make it for 5 years or 10 years or something like that?
Yes.
I think I would move to amend the motion to make this for a period of 10 years.
All right, we have an amendment.
But no seconder at this point, though.
Huh?
So apparently my motion dies for lack of second.
All right. Alder Pete, you down. Okay. All right, we have a motion by Alder Land and second by the chair. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 1075-24, communication sponsored by Elder Horton on behalf of the fire chief requesting permission that the mayor be authorized to accept and sign the fiscal year 2024 hazmat materials emergency preparedness grant from Wisconsin Emergency Management for equipment and training. Grant amount is $91,663.05, control number 00603. Staff recommendation that the mayor be authorized to accept and sign fiscal year 2024 hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant in the amount of $91,663.05, control number 00603. Chief Hansen is here.
All right, Chief.
Once again, good evening, everyone. Thank you. This is for our regional hazardous materials team. As you are all keenly aware, we provide not only services to the citizens of Racine, but to the region. The state is giving us this money to upgrade some of our equipment for the team to the tune of $91,000. And an interesting thing on this is these are one of those grants that come up very quickly. We received notice on November 4th that this grant was coming down, and it needs to be approved by the December council meeting. This will provide us with chemical analyzers, hazmat kits, gas monitors, which are all expensive equipment for the hazmat team. So again, this is a no-cost grant to the city of Racine. We have no match that we have to put into this, so it's a good thing for our community.
Any questions for Chief? All right, we have a motion. We have a motion by Alder McCarthy, second by Alder Land. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. I'll leave you on.
Item number 1026-24, communication sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of Police Chief Ramirez, requesting permission to purchase bulletproof vests for the SWAT program. Staff recommendation that the request to purchase bulletproof vests for the SWAT program be approved. Fiscal notes funds available in RPD account 20603-53230. No city match. Assistant Chief Teller is here to speak on the item.
Chief
Good
Teller, go ahead.
evening. Yeah, so this is a recurring thing. We have to replace these vests. They have a limited shelf life, but this is outfitting the SWAT unit. There's 24 members, and this will provide them the required equipment that they need for their personal body protection.
All right. Alder McCarthy.
Thank you. It's more of a process question, perhaps for the director. Why is this in front of us? It's in the budget. They're buying something that's in the budget already.
So actually, this is a little bit of a different funding source that they are using for the bulletproof vest. So if you see that account number 20603, it's not a regular general budget item. I'm not sure, is this, do you know what funding source this is, Chief?
It is,
I can look it up really quick.
yes, I do. I just can't think of the name right now.
Asset forfeiture?
Asset forfeiture, thank you.
So this is asset forfeiture funds. So these funds are only spent if we actually have asset forfeiture that we receive. So that's why it is coming forward, but it's a good question.
All right, thank you. And I think we have used that before for this, if I remember properly. But either way, thank you.
All right. At this time, without any other questions, I will entertain a motion. It's been motioned by Alder McCarthy, second by Vice Chair Sebastian. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 1037-24, communication sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of Police Chief Ramirez, requesting permission to apply for the 2025 Beat Patrol grant in the amount of $121,434, control number 00590. Staff recommendation that the request to apply, is this one that we said we want to apply and accept?
That is correct.
Okay, let me reread that, sorry. So this would be a permission to apply and accept for the 2025 Beat Patrol grant in the amount of $121,434. Staff recommendation that the request to apply and accept the 2025 Beat Patrol grant be approved. Fiscal note, funds available in RPD wages salary account, city match is $40,478.
All right. All right, Chief.
So this is a recurring grant. The reason why we're requesting to apply and accept is because they notified us of the grant on October 15th. It was due by the 1st of November, so we had to expedite the application, and we have already been accepted. So your approval would be greatly appreciated.
Any discussion on this item? At this time, I will entertain a motion to, I would make a motion to approve item 1037-24. Been moved by the chair, second by Alder McCarthy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Thank you.
Item number 1079-24, communication sponsored by Alder Horton on behalf of the Human Resources Benefit Manager, requesting permission to present and propose a restricted duty policy for approval. Staff recommendation that the restricted duty policy be approved as presented to take effect upon approval of the Common Council, and that this policy be incorporated in the next update to the City of Racine Employee Handbook. Fiscal note, there is no fiscal impact to the city. Benefit Manager Lean is here to speak on the item.
All right.
Yes. Good
Go ahead.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me present this evening. For this item, I am looking for approval for this restricted / modified duty policy. So currently, we have a very, very small section in the employee handbook that reads that the Human Resources Department must be kept informed of light duty and notified when the employee returns to work. And this restricted / modified duty policy encompasses the procedures that myself and the benefits coordinator have kind of organically been overseeing and implementing since being in these roles. So there are a lot more steps and involvement from myself and the benefits coordinator when it comes to restricted duty positions, return to work restrictions, and workers' compensation claims in general. For this policy, I have worked with the city attorney's office to draft this to accurately reflect that. And I believe this will cause less confusion and provide more clarity and support when implementing and overseeing this procedure. When talking about restricted duty and with not only the affected employees but also the supervisors and the administrative managers. And overall, this policy, the purpose is to establish a uniform policy and procedure for the administration of a citywide restricted and modified duty assignment this is for non-represented employees who are temporarily disabled from performing all of the essential duties of their regularly assigned positions due to a work-related injury or illness. So with that, I can help answer any questions that the committee may have.
Any discussion on this item? Second. Okay, I get it to you, Alderland. So moved by Alderman McCarthy, second by Alderland. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 1002-24, communication sponsored by Alder McCarthy regarding a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of up to, I'm changing the number here because we got new updated numbers today, the issuance and sale of up to $10,459,21 in taxable wastewater revenue bonds series 2024 and providing for other details and covenants with respect thereto. Recommendation of the wastewater commission was to approve with a referral to finance and personnel. Staff recommendation is relatively specific, and this will be updated when it goes to common council as well. To authorize the execution of the financial assistance agreement and authorize the issuance and sale of up to $10,450,921 in taxable wastewater revenue bonds series 2024 and providing for other details and covenants with respect thereto. Fiscal note, the $10,450,000, $10,450,920 bond, I said that wrong, at an interest rate of 2.2% from state revolving loan funds reflects principal forgiveness of up to $2.1 million. I apologize for all the changes. We literally got this from bond counsel in the last hour. And Director Tillis is here to speak on the item.
All right, Director Tillis, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this item. So this is a Clean Water Fund loan item. It's for our Chicory storage tank. This is for the design, construction, and construction management of a 1.67 million gallon storage basin that will be located in the city, on the border between the city of Racine and the village of Mount Pleasant. The cost for the construction and the entire loan has been figured for both, depending on the sewer shed. The city of Racine's portion is 26.4%. And the project is currently underway. It is set to end sometime around the beginning of 2026.
All
I'm
right.
going to take any questions.
Alderman McCarthy.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Nate, I'm not sure if this is for you or the director again here. Coincidentally, we went down by exactly 2.1 million, the forgivable amount. So this is just a wording thing to reflect the bonded amount then?
It is just a wording thing to reflect the bond amount.
Since I'm sponsoring this, thanks. I want to be sure I understand what I'm sponsoring. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the item? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
All right, it's been moved by Alderman McCarthy, second by Vice Chair Sebastian. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 1008-24, communication sponsored by Elder Horton on behalf of the Public Health Department requesting permission to accept funding of $62,213 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services Consolidated Contract for Public Health Emergency Preparedness PEP Program 00592. Staff recommendation that the Public Health Department be authorized to accept the funding. Fiscal note, no match required. Deputy Director Fergus here to speak on the item.
All right, thank you all.
Okay.
So this is a long-time standing grant that we've had. It comes from DHS through our consolidated contract for public health emergency preparedness. So the PrEP funding works throughout the year through multiple partners, strengthening the preparedness response for the capabilities of the local and tribal health departments to address any health threats. Funded activities that we utilize the funding for, along with part of our preparedness coordinator, would be enhancing surveillance systems, updating emergency response plans, conducting training and exercises, ensuring resource availability, and implementing public communication strategies. There is no city match required for this grant.
Any discussion on this item? All right, I will make a motion to. Oh, no, I thought you wanted to say something.
Nope.
No, I will make a motion to approve this item. Motion by the chair, second by Alderman Land. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 1009-24, communication sponsored by Alderman Horton on behalf of the Public Health Department, requesting permission to accept funding of $222,700 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services consolidated contract for the infant mortality program, control number 00601. Staff recommendation that the Public Health Department be authorized to accept said funding. Fiscal note, no match required. Director Fergus.
Thank you again. So this agenda item involves the Racine Healthy Beginnings program. We've had this grant and this funding available to us since 2007. This supports low-income and Medicaid-eligible individuals who are either not pregnant or in their preconception period, or those who are pregnant. It's a team that consists of a family nurse practitioner, a social worker, and a nutritionist, which empowers individuals to make healthy lifestyle choices, improve maternal wellness, reduce unwanted pregnancies, and decrease rates of low birth weight babies, premature birth, chronic health conditions, and other pregnancy complications that ultimately can lead to higher infant and fetal mortality rate. African American families in the city of Racine have experienced infant mortality rates at least 3 times that of the white families for much of the time since 1999. In addition, Hispanic families have experienced infant mortality rates very similar to that of white families over the same period of time. We're looking at accepting this funding and being able to look at the program in a different way with the nurse practitioner and the nutritionist and the social worker to be able to address the infant and fetal mortality rates.
All right. Alderman McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve this item as well as items 1010 and 1011-24, all of which are funded by the DHS and have no match required.
All right. It's been moved and properly second. Moved by Alderman McCarthy, second by Alderman Land. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All done.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Moving to item number 1069-24, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason on behalf of the Finance Director, requesting authorization for the Mayor and City Clerk to enter into an interagency agreement with the Finance Department to continue the Financial Empowerment Center oversight and administration using City Direct federal ARPA funds for 2025 and 2026. Staff recommendation that the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to enter into said interagency agreement. Fiscal note, the interagency agreement will be in the amount of $115,000 and will be spent over a 2-year period. Funds are available in Fund 229, City Direct ARPA project number 22917. This is my item relating to the FEC. We brought to you last meeting 3 other interagency agreements. This is the very last one to encumber the very last bit of our City Direct ARPA funds. This will fund the oversight of the city's Financial Empowerment Center. So it will pay for salaries associated with that, but mostly will be funding an IDA program, which helps with down payment assistance and education associated with home buying in the city of Racine. Our FEC provides counseling services in that space, helping with credit scores and that type of thing. A portion of this funding, or a good amount of this funding for this program, will also be funded from local banks. Some of the larger banks like a JP Morgan, Johnson Financial, and different partners associated with this program. And also we do have another grant associated with the program that comes from the Center for Financial Empowerment, which is a nonprofit that donated to the city of Racine some years back for this program. Any questions?
Alderman McCarthy.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And just to confirm, we have all these funding sources for here. Since this involves actual assistance with down payment, I just want to confirm that none of this is coming directly off the tax levy, but rather through all these various funding sources.
Correct. You're absolutely correct. None of these programs are tax levy funded. They are all coming from different grant programs. And again, if the funding isn't there in terms of a grant program, we would discontinue the program itself.
Thank you. I move to approve the program.
Moved by Alderman McCarthy, second by Alderman Land. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 1077-24, communication sponsored by Elder Horton, presenting the meeting calendar for the Finance and Personnel Committee for 2025. Staff recommendation that the Finance Committee keep the same date and time as currently in place, which is for Finance and Personnel is Monday at 5:30, the Monday the week before the council meeting is scheduled. I brought this item or put this item on because we actually are required to do this as part of the process. The council is also required to pass their committee schedule, so I wanted to get it on for the committee to talk through what you would like to do for your schedule for 2025.
All right. Any discussion on this item? Well, it's 5:30 time. Is it still okay for everyone? I still got your order. Yeah.
Move to approve the schedule.
All right. It's been moved by Alderman McCarthy, second by the Vice Chair. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 1040-24, communication sponsored by Elder Horton on behalf of the City Attorney's Office submitting the claim of Mark Vinstra for consideration for disallowance. Staff recommendation that the claim be disallowed. Deputy City Attorney Rubik here to speak on the item.
All right. Oh, go ahead. Oh, let me tell you.
Would it be appropriate or allowable, not appropriate, appropriate and allowable that we treat these as an omnibus as well? They're all recommended for denial and simply confirm the denial of all of these items?
Yeah. What is it? I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, I will have to address each one, but
Okay.
the motion can be one that covers all.
Okay.
Okay, I will move to disallow claims number, got to start the right spot here, 1040 through 1045.
All right. It's been moved by Alderman McCarthy, second by the Vice Chair. All in favor signify by saying aye.
No, she still has to explain them all.
Oh, okay. You got to explain. Okay.
I will do my best to keep this brief. The first claim, claimant Mark Vinistra, filed this claim with the city requesting an unspecified amount of damages related to a sewer line disconnection at his property located at 816 Prospect Street in Racine. This was allegedly caused when a repair to the water line was made in 2016. Due to the fact that this claim is untimely and that no itemized damages were specified, we're recommending disallowance because the claim is unactionable. Moving on to the next one.
Next
unless
item,
there are
yeah, go ahead.
questions. Claimant Quanda Williams filed a claim with the city requesting $18,903.27 in medical expenses and property damages allegedly arising from the claimant driving her vehicle into a flooded section of Lathrop Avenue back on July 14th, 2024. She claims that due to the rainfall, she couldn't see through her windshield, and also the streetlights were out, presumably due to the flooding. Every driver has an obligation to be able to see where they're driving and to look out for hazards, potential hazards in the roadway, and by driving into the flooded road, she was negligent. She also failed to itemize her damages related to the claim. She only included some medical bills that seemed unrelated to this matter. So not only is the claim not actionable, but it was her own negligence that was at fault. So we recommend disallowance of that claim.
Right.
Moving on.
Next item. Yep.
Claimant Sarah Jerry, by and through her attorneys, filed a claim with the city requesting $250,000 in damages arising from a hit-and-run car accident on August 11th, 2022, near the intersection of Marquette Street and 8th Street in Racine. In this accident, a reckless driver actually hit a City of Racine DPW truck, and then subsequently the reckless driver's vehicle struck the claimant's vehicle. At no time did the city's solid waste truck hit the claimant's vehicle, so we are requesting disallowance on the basis of liability, and because the city wasn't at fault for these damages. That's why we are recommending disallowance on that one. Next up, claimants Shamika Kelly and Damian Price filed a claim with the city requesting an unspecified amount of damages resulting from claimant Kelly allegedly falling while walking on a sidewalk around 3353 Kentucky Street in Racine back on August 3rd of this year. The claimant fails to allege that there was a defect or any other reason that caused her to fall on the sidewalk. It appears that she just fell on her own accord due to her own negligence. Again, everyone has a responsibility to keep a lookout for hazards in their walkway and to walk with care. And the city can't be held liable for this. Beyond that, no itemized damages were requested, so it's not an actionable claim. And for those reasons, we are requesting your disallowance. Second to last. Sedgwick Claims Management Incorporated, on behalf of its insured Cintas Corporation, claims reimbursement for $10,429.95 in damages arising from an alleged accident involving a City of Racine DPW vehicle striking Cintas's illegally parked vehicle around 800 South Marquette Street back on May 1st of this year. Due to the Cintas vehicle being parked illegally, Cintas would share any alleged liability for this accident, so we're disputing the damages claimed and our liability for it, and recommending disallowance on that basis. And finally, Linda Gilmer, by and through her attorney, claims reimbursement in the amount of $75,000 for damages allegedly arising from a purported injury she incurred when she was boarding a Racine Transit bus in her mobility scooter back on February 6, 2023. The claimant alleges that the bus driver didn't fold up enough seating to accommodate her mobility scooter, and therefore she somehow backed into this bolt that caused her leg injury. The city maintains that the claimant's alleged injury was the result of her own negligence in operating the scooter. The city maintains that she drove into this bolt on her own volition while the driver was getting straps to secure the scooter. Because we dispute the damages claimed and the liability for those damages, we're requesting disallowance.
All right. So we have items 1040 through 1045 have been already motioned by Alderman McCarthy and second by the Vice Chair Sebastian. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposes? Motion carried. All right.
It is intended that the Finance and Personnel Committee will convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19851G to discuss strategy for litigation in which the City of Racine is or is likely to become involved. We'll need a motion and a second to go into closed session.
Second. Roll call.